Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, I have John Siefert, CEO of Dynamics Communities, with me to talk about what's planned for DCI's upcoming AI Agent and Copilot Summit North America. This is the inaugural AI Agent and Copilot Summit event taking place March 17th to 19th, and MSDW is a media partner for it. You can find out more about our special registration offer at the end of this episode or in the show notes. And in this conversation, John gets us all up to speed on what to expect at the event, including how the event model came together, the way the team is approaching the experience from keynotes and fireside chats to product-focused tracks, who's going to be attending, including IT and enterprise application professionals, and some exciting Microsoft speaker news that recently broke. Finally, we touch on the beautiful setting of this event, Torrey Pines in San Diego, and a bit about the experience of being there. All right, I am here with John Siefert to talk about the AI Agent and Copilot Summit North America. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jason, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. So for our listeners, I'm going to guess that a lot of them have met you or at least heard you speak, heard you broadcast in your own podcasting that you do. But can you just give a brief introduction for anyone who maybe isn't familiar with you and what you do?
Yeah, no sweat. So I have been the CEO of Dynamic Communities since Q4 of 2020. So Jason, I was one of those crazy people that took a new job during the pandemic, right? I have been a part of this organization since that point. For context, right, it's Dynamic Communities is a name. A lot of times we refer to it as DCI because that's kind of the name that's been aligned with it for years. But just so everybody knows, we're the producers of Community Summit North America, which is the largest innovation, education, and training event for Microsoft business applications. Takes place in October. We also do the BizApps Partner Executive Summit, which takes place over the summer for partners in the Microsoft ecosystem there in Bellevue. And then, as you mentioned, we're doing this really neat thing here in March called the AI Agent and Copilot Summit. So all of those pieces kind of make up a big part of what we do, Jason.
All right, excellent. Well, glad to have you here. And like you mentioned, I mean, a range of efforts and events and, really guided by, as far as I can tell, your team's sort of focus on what the community needs and sort of how Microsoft is evolving their plans as well. And I think this event is a really interesting one because it blends those, and we'll get into that during this conversation. So AI Agent and Copilot Summit, can you tell us a little bit more about how this event has kind of come into being and how it evolved? It's not the first time that Dynamic Communities has focused on the sort of Microsoft AI story. Can you tell us a little more about the event itself?
So it's kind of a fun story how it came to be. So when we were in Charlotte in 2023, we created a pre-conference for Community Summit North America that was really an AI agent and Copilot pre-conference to, the large event that brings in 5,000 or so folks there for the BizApps category. And we sold out for this single day pre-conference pretty darn fast. And it was a mix of, some great speakers from Microsoft and great speakers from the community there in 2023 when we were still kind of in the, very top of the first inning, right? With everything AI. Mm-hmm. And it was really received well. Folks really appreciated the kind of why and how analysis that all of the amazing speakers delivered in that session. So we did that program again in 2024 as a pre-conference to Summit North America. When we were in San Antonio, that program again sold out, right? So attendees that were there really liked the idea of this thing. So we had a number of folks who kind of repeated this, right? They were there with us in 23 and then wanted to come back and see what had evolved over the last year in 24 at the pre-conference. And then the other thing we did was we created an AI Agent and Copilot Digital Summit. That was like a 6-7 hour long program that ran over the summer in 2024. And gosh, that one had 1,000, 1,200 or so folks that viewed that digital summit. And that, again, kind of had leaders from Microsoft's AI practice and M365 and BizApps and more. And then had some folks from the community delivering their sort of first-person perspectives on how they were building their own copilots and agents in Copilot Studio or Azure AI Studio and others. Or I guess now we call it Azure AI Foundry, right? So got to say that the right way. But all of those things really kind of were the the sort of data, I guess that you would say, Jason, that we used to say, boy, seems like the community is ready for something that is a standalone event. Because what we never want to do is go just launch something willy-nilly, right? Like launch a new event, because it's a whole lot of work, a whole lot of investment for the community to build these things. But we wanted to say, boy, with those 2 years of doing the pre-conference and this digital summit and all of the energy and momentum from Satya Nadella and Charles Lamanna and the rest of the leadership over at Microsoft around agents and copilots, we said, boy, it's the right time to bring the community together for an AI first event to help them kind of manage through what's being called the most disruptive thing since, horses lost their jobs, right? And we moved from horse and buggy over to cars. So that's really what the premise is and kind of how we got here, Jason.
All right, great. And I think you just touched on this. This evolution has really asked questions, you might say, of everybody in the space because of the potential that it has to be disruptive, to introduce totally new, opportunities and also totally new ways of potentially looking at how organizations run their business, how they kind of use IT as part of that story. And when I first, heard about this event, and we're, a media partner for you, which is great, and I'll be there covering it. But when I looked at sort of what you have planned for the event, the agenda really breaks down into some very, interesting categories or I guess themes. So I thought we could maybe just talk about a little bit how those themes kind of came together, how you sort of landed on those. So, because they're very specific, I'll just mention a couple for the listeners. So there's, using agents and copilots in Business Central, using agents and copilots in other Dynamics products specifically, responsible AI, building agents and copilots with Copilot Studio and like you said, AI Foundry. It sounds like the approach was to target very specific scenarios and very specific kind of, capabilities that people would come to an event like this with these kinds of questions on their mind. Is that right?
Well, I think it's a great way to say it. I'll take a tad of a step back on this. So when we started thinking about what the sessions were that could be created here in the context of this event, we wanted to have both main stage sessions like keynotes and fireside chats and that type of thing that everybody can tune into because they're very important to the entire community. And then we wanted to have breakout what we were calling masterclass sessions, right? And those masterclass sessions that take place on the afternoons of both days, on the 18th and the 19th of March. And we wanted those masterclasses to be things that everybody could tune into and be a part of based on where they were in their own journeys, right? And what the biggest priorities were for them. So for the main stage programming, which take place, from breakfast until about lunchtime on both the 18th and the 19th of March. Those main stage programs include keynotes from leaders over at Microsoft. Folks like Ray Smith, who is the vice president of AI agents over at Microsoft, will be leading a session on Tuesday where he's going to really kind of take us down a path, right? Of, boy, how are agents and copilots really, kind of making us rethink and reimagine and reconsider how work gets done. So that's a main stage session Ray's going to be doing. On the same day, we're going to have an industry AI panel that Tony Uphoff, who's the CEO of Pipeline 360, is going to be doing with some CIOs that are in the community from areas like the CPG category and the manufacturing category and the healthcare category and others, where that panel discussion is going to be, again, led by Tony, but with each one of the different participants talking about how they are considering AI and specifically agents and copilots, as a way to kind of rethink how their industries run and what role their companies play in their industries. So I think we all, as people who are, business technology folks, we always kind of tend to say, hey, here's the horizontal thing about that technology. Now I want to think about some of the industry or vertical elements of that technology. So that's another neat panel that's going to be going on there on Tuesday on the main stage. I'm also thrilled that Cecilia Flombaum, who many know in the community, a real leader here in the community and a leader over at Microsoft, she's actually going to be leading a session on Tuesday as well from the main stage that's going to break down how agents and copilots are actually redefining the value of Dynamics 365 products, right? So really kind of get specific. Hey, how are these things really changing the way the D365 products, from low code, no code stuff to ERP stuff to now, the elements of Studio and the like are actually changing and evolving and creating new value for all of us as users of the Dynamics solutions. Another little one I'll mention there on Tuesday, Jason, for the main stage is a company called PriceSmart, which is a global big box retailer. We're actually going to have a really interesting discussion where Wayne Sadin, who is the EVP and CIO, is joined by the Chief Transformation Officer and the Chief Legal Officer from PriceSmart to talk about how they are all working together on their agent and copilot strategy for this enterprise organization. The reason why I like this one is they're very early in their process, as many of our attendees are going to be at the event, and they're actually going to talk about how they are working together from a tech perspective, from a business transformation perspective, and from a legal perspective to consider the role of agents and copilots in their, very large organization. So there's some of the main stage programs there. The neat thing is after those main stage programs, then everybody gets to then pick and choose from those master classes. And you mentioned a few of them that are going to be going on. There'll be a total of 6, but we kind of want to use that first half of the day to almost inspire everybody to say, boy, I want to go to learn more about building my own agents and copilots. I want to go learn more about responsible AI and cybersecurity. I want to go learn more about how to make sure my data is ready to apply some of these tools and go into our masterclass on AI data readiness. So that's kind of what that Tuesday looks like. We're going to have a really nice reception there on Tuesday evening. And then on Wednesday, we have the same sort of flow, Jason, with the event, where the first half of the day is all main stage programming. I'm thrilled to let everybody know that Brian Goode, who is CVP of Business Applications over at Microsoft, will be kicking the day off on Wednesday in a fireside chat with my colleague and Cloud Wars founder, Bob Evans, where they're going to kind of take us back up to the 50,000 foot level a little bit and talk about how AI and specifically agents and copilots could be considered almost like a reimagination machine for how our businesses work, how our employees work, how we serve customers, and so much more. So super excited for that discussion. Another neat one that we're going to have on the main stage that day will feature Prashant Boyer and Dwayne Robinson. So Prashant, Microsoft AI MVP, and Dwayne Robinson, one of the leaders behind Copilot Studio over at Microsoft, they're both going to kind of discuss, debate, and define, hey, when do you use Copilot Studio as kind of a SaaS-based environment to build your agents and copilots? And when do you use Azure AI Foundry as kind of, the no guardrail environment, right, to build your agents and copilots? So that's going to be a great, almost architectural discussion, right, that is great for business folks and for technology folks, because it can help you sort of define and decide which direction makes the most sense based on what your business goals are. A few more really neat sessions are going to be running there on the main stage. And then on Wednesday afternoon, we'll break back down into those same master classes for almost like wave 2, right? So on day 1, you've got kind of wave 1 of those masterclass sessions on, again, using agents and copilots in Dynamics 365 solutions or building your own copilots and agents and more. And then on day 2, you get to go in and have a kind of wave 2 of those same themes with different speakers taking you down different journeys. We're going to have some neat use case programs in there and that kind of stuff as well. And then godly, sorry to talk so much, Jason, but there's one other one I want to mention. We're going to end the event at 4:00 on Wednesday with somebody I'm so excited is going to be a part of the program with us. It's Lambert Hogenhout, who is the Chief of Data and AI for the United Nations. And Lambert's going to talk about how we all sort of survive this AI revolution, right? For our businesses, for our jobs, for everything there that we're going to be doing. And the reason why I love that session to end the event is because there's a level of inspiration to it, but there's also a level of kind of guidance for us all to consider here as we move on to the next phases of what AI is going to mean in culture and society and, global politics, right? All those kinds of things. The other reason why I love this is because the way we are starting the event off at the opening reception on the afternoon of Monday, March 17th, is with another keynote speaker, and that is Christopher Lochhead. who is going to launch the entire program off with us on Monday afternoon at 4 on the 17th, where he's going to talk through a brand new book that he's a best-selling author and a global podcast individual who's done amazing things. But his book is on how to build a legendary career in a post-AI world. So that's actually going to launch the whole event off, right? With this really kind of heady discussion on, boy, what does this stuff to mean to us as individuals? Then you've got that entire program we just talked about, then rounding out the discussions on Wednesday afternoon with Lambert from the United Nations, as I mentioned. So obviously, I'm pretty excited about this thing, Jason, but just wanted to kind of put a little context around those themes and how they play into not only the overall strategy and approach for the community with this event, but also how they play into each one of the amazing speakers that are going to be a part of the program.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to dive into there, and I think you broke down a lot of it. I mean, one of the things that makes me think of is, what the experience will be like for attendees and maybe who you expect those attendees to be. Can you put any color on that in terms of who you think is going to attend and maybe what recommendations you would make of what you hope they get out of it?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, and I can tell you what the data is telling us so far, right, on who's registered for the event. So we're expecting anywhere from 500, 750, maybe even more attendees to be a part of the event here from the community. It's a year one event, so I can't tell you exactly what the number is going to be because I have no background data to pull from. It came out of our programming committee board, who had the job of analyzing over 150 sessions, right? 70 or so of which are actually part of our program. But what they started with was, hey, where is everybody in their journey as they would want to come to an event like this? And so we came up with 3 words that actually kind of define who the attendees are a little bit, I think, because we said, boy, let's make this event about understanding the opportunities, the impact, and the potential outcomes of Microsoft agents and copilots for, mid-market and enterprise companies. So we sort of started with that premise as we were putting the original agenda together, the original thinking around this thing. I think that kind of positioning of the event, which is very different from what you get at a Community Summit North America, which is all about, innovation, education, and training. At this event, you're really kind of focused on the opportunities, the impact, and the outcomes. That sort of created this really interesting kind of filter of people who have registered for the event so far. So we're seeing a lot of folks from different industries, right? Manufacturing, healthcare, professional services, and more, retail, CPG, et cetera. But the other thing that's interesting is the level of participant, right? So we're seeing, for the most part, kind of from a job title perspective, people who have almost like director level and above type titles. So director of IT, CIO, chief transformation officer, chief of AI, and some titles like that. And then we're also seeing some really interesting business titles and finance titles that are a part of this, because they're starting to look at this and say, okay, golly, if this AI stuff is going to change the way we operate and change the way we are managing our finances and our systems, like our ERP systems and such, they need to tune in because they also have to figure out the opportunities, impact, and outcomes of these solutions. So I'll tell you just really kind of fun story. We're working with I'm not going to say the name of the organization, but it's a north of $4 billion healthcare institution that's based there in California. And our ABM, our account-based person who does attendee success for us, Joanne, was on the phone with their CIO and was trying to figure out, hey, could that individual come be a part of the event as an attendee and the like? And that individual couldn't make it to the event, but they said, hey, would you mind if my head of AI came to the event? And we said, well, he said, of course, that sounds great, right? If that's the right person to be here. And what was really neat was that discussion turned into Joanne really working with this person to go through the entire agenda. And they were very enthused by the main stage programming, obviously, because it's some pretty neat discussions, but then helping that individual through the master classes that are going on both days, and actually picking and choosing sessions in each master class that were aligned with strategically and tactically how this person was trying to get their arms around everything AI, because this is not an existing Microsoft customer, right? This is somebody who is really just trying to explore and discover what the potential is in the healthcare world with agents and copilots. So Joanne ended up, and I joined the call for a few minutes, right? But ended up literally going through the 70 plus sessions that are a part of the program and literally the sessions in each masterclass and picking the ones that made the most sense to help this person through their process based on where they were in their journey. So that's kind of what we're seeing, Jason, is that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such an interesting story. And I just imagine that everyone who comes to this event is there because they're the ones having, challenging questions asked of them by either their CEO or their board or whatever the case may be. And these are the people who ultimately have to make some of these decisions and give some good answers about what their organization's approach is going to be, how it's going to drive investment, how it's going to drive their future planning. Because these decisions and the adoption of these capabilities and tools don't happen overnight. They happen progressively, as most sort of IT focused investments do, I assume. But it also sort of then cross-pollinates, I guess you'd say, with learning from where other organizations with maybe like-minded people or similar goals to some extent are in their own journeys and trading notes and comparing to the extent that you can between experts and between teams. So it's sort of an interesting, not self-selecting, but the people who are going to be there are the ones who need to be there, right? Who have these real challenges in front of them at the moment.
Well, and I think you nailed something there, and I just want to pick up the ball on it just a little bit because there is just a ton of pressure on folks, whether they're business folks or technology folks or what have you inside these mid-market and enterprise companies because, their boards or their bosses have listened to a podcast, right? Or have seen an article or have tuned into a video or what have you about how AI is changing the world. And those boards are then going to, their teams, right? The folks that are running their businesses saying, hey, what are you doing here, right? What are we doing here? What are we doing to embrace this AI future, AI revolution and such? And that can be a tough position to be in, right? And one of the things that I'm thrilled about is, we actually have 2 different sessions on the main stage that are actually helping everybody in the who's attending the event to have those conversations with their boards and with their executives and that kind of thing. In fact, Kirsty Tiernan from BDO, she's part of the board of directors over at BDO. She's going to be leading a session on from board members to staff how to set organizational priorities for AI success on Tuesday. And I kind of dig that because, for a lot of us, we're going, golly, how do we have those conversations, right? And then Diane Gardner, who is with Two Pillars Asset Management, she's going to do a session on Wednesday where she's going to talk about, whereas Kirsty kind of talks about setting the priorities, Diane is going to talk about presenting the use case to your board of directors and C-suite and how to actually have some of those discussions. So it's a nice way for us to help the community kind of manage through those, what can be kind of tough conversations and thorny conversations about, something as innovative as AI and what it means for their business and how to have those conversations.
One of the challenges I would say is also that people coming from different organizations are going to be getting very different messaging and very different kinds of questions because I think some executives are very enthusiastic about this opportunity. I think others are very skeptical and, perhaps even negative on it right now. I think it really depends on where they're coming from, sort of who they're reading out in the world, what kind of commentary they're, ingesting, if you will. So I'm really interested personally to kind of get a sense from people who are there, like what kind of climate they're coming from. And so what kind of questions they then have to try to answer and what they're hoping to hear from others at the event.
Yeah, I think it's such a great point. And I will, it reminds me of other kind of revolutionary stuff that we've gotten to watch, Jason, over the years, such. And I'll never forget when I was part of this media brand called Information Week back in the day, it has stuff for like 15 years in that for this company. I got to live through the birth of the internet, right? Like the internet is a commercial platform and that type of thing. And I'll never forget, it really kind of reminds me of some of this stuff on the AI side, because there's a whole bunch of people saying that it was a fad and that it was, I don't think this internet stuff's going to take off. And, they were making fun of the web vans and the companies that were really early stage, in the internet and that kind of thing. And hearing some of that sort of language or themes come through from some folks here about everything that we're seeing with AI agents and agentic architecture and copilots as your kind of, your assistant within environments and such, it reminds me a little bit of those days, for some folks that are a little bit less kind of enthusiastic or maybe a little bit more guarded about what this stuff is going to mean and that kind of thing. And listen, the only way we're going to know the answers is to watch it evolve, right? And see how many folks really kind of harness this stuff and use it as a way to redefine their industries, their work, and how they work with their partners and their customers and that kind of stuff. And others that don't. And, we will see who the winners are, right? As we progress. But boy, when you hear somebody who I'm a big fan of, right? Number one on the Cloud Wars top 10 and the platform for which we do a whole bunch of stuff here with Dynamic Communities, CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, say that SaaS is dead, right? And those were literally the words that he used, not my words. And then you hear somebody else who I have a ton of respect for with Charles Lamanna over at Microsoft talk about how, the pace at which these things are being adopted and used and levered within mid-market and enterprise companies is the fastest thing he's ever seen happen in his career. And then talk about how what they're starting to see is that their customers, right, all of our attendees and folks in the community, that he expects sort of flattening to decline in the investment in traditional business applications in favor of an increase in investment for agents and copilots as a way to run businesses. I think those are some pretty smart folks, that are talking about what that future, will likely look like. And, it's one of the reasons why we have, as DCI, put such an investment into this category for the community, because if that's what the leadership at Microsoft is talking about, that's what, golly, everybody seems to be talking about today. Hey, it becomes a big part of our role in the community to help folks figure that stuff out. And that's really what we're trying to do with the AI Agent and Copilot Summit.
Yeah. And the other, I guess, component of when Microsoft is prioritizing a goal like that, the other group it falls to is the partners in the Microsoft channel to then essentially help make sense of it for their clients in many cases. Because as I think our listeners mostly know, most Dynamics customers, I would say, they're not working day to day with Microsoft. They're usually working through experts at a partner organization, right? And making decisions about their architecture and some of their solution investments and so forth. Partners play also a big part at this event, right? You mentioned several who will be presenting on the keynote stage and probably helping to lead some of the workshops and breakouts as well. Yeah. Any other perspective on sort of how partners have played a role in helping this event come together?
We had a number of folks in leadership roles at partners that were part of our programming committee board who actually created the entire agenda here for the AI Agent and Copilot Summit. I think as most everybody knows, this isn't like one or two of us on a whiteboard trying to figure out how to create a cool event. This is the community coming together through this programming committee board to make sure that we have representation for the entire community in our agenda. And that was really neat because that had some folks from Microsoft on it, had some amazing partners that were part of that programming committee board, some amazing users. So like CIO and director level users that were a part of the board, as well as an individual from academia who was a part of the board. So we really tried to represent the community in that thing, with partners playing an amazing role with us. And then the sponsors for the event this year, I can't thank them enough because they're actually enabling us to offset some of this pretty big investment that we're putting into building this event for the community and for Microsoft. But it's, BDO, who I mentioned before, right? Really neat. They're doing a golf tournament on Monday the 17th before we open the event, right? So it's a really neat golf tournament at the iconic Torrey Pines golf course, right? And that's really neat. But then we've got, a number of other partners sponsoring the event that are playing really great roles with us. For example, Alithia and SA Global are both actually going to be doing keynote fireside chats with me on the keynote stage as well, as part of their investment into the community to help us create this event. And I'm thrilled because from SA Global, somebody who I've gotten a chance to know pretty well there, Stephen James, who has done a couple of podcasts with me and that kind of stuff. He's going to be joining me on the keynote stage there on Wednesday morning. And then on Tuesday morning, I'm really excited because this is one of my favorite folks in the community, John Skandar, who is an SVP over at Alithya, and Jason Wickman, who works with John as the digital Microsoft practice over at Alithya, is also going to be joining, and we're going to have a really neat conversation. So that is part of their investment into the community is amazing. And then the rest of the sponsors that are on board here with us, you can find them all on the website. But AlphaBold and Argano, Armanino, C5, Boyer, Dynatech, Forvis Mazars, HSO, Ludia, Leapwork, RSM, MCA Connect, Data Courage, doing some really neat stuff in their category with XE and the financial systems side. It's just it's a really neat group. And a lot of these folks have actually created and invested a lot in their partner practices to have levels of AI expertise that they're going to have at the event with us. So a huge value for all of our attendees is to, go get to shoot the breeze with somebody at Forvis Mazars that is leading the, AI practice for their organization, or get to shoot the breeze with a Jeff Abels from C5 Insight, who's been doing some amazing stuff in the category, and others that are a part of the program. So it's one of the neat things, right? When you think about what like RSM has done in this category, they have invested a ton into creating their AI practice, and we're going to have some of the, kind of leaders, right, of that practice, just like with a lot of the other partners that folks are going to be able to engage with and just have kind of explore and discover conversations based on where they are in their process, right? Gang over at Leapwork, HSO, some of the others that I've mentioned, MCA Connect, there's going to have some leaders that you can almost have a non-threatening conversation with, because this stuff, to your earlier point, Jason, can feel a little threatening, right? With how much is happening so fast. You can actually have a neat conversation with some of these folks and get their ideas, their perspective on what this means to you and your business. And what better place to do that than in an event?
Yeah, I mean, it really maybe is the third leg of the stool in the sense of, if you're someone from a customer organization, in the sense of a Microsoft customer coming to an event like this, you want to hear from Microsoft, you want to hear from your peers. But yeah, like you said, these partners really are sort of the leading indicator, I guess you'd say, of where customers are headed, because the good partners are obviously focused on customer success. They're not just focused on selling, whatever the latest thing is. I mean, they have their goals, but the good ones really, they know what's going to be successful, be possible, right, for their clients and fit that. So like you said, some really great names in there that you can bounce ideas off of, ask tough questions of, and they'll give you real answers. So certainly a really interesting, something that I was thinking about coming into this conversation was to learn a little bit more about how you saw that evolving. So that's great. Yeah, you mentioned the locale. I mean, it's a beautiful area of the US if you haven't been there before. So hopefully it's a place where you can get some sunshine. And if you are a golfer, I guess neither of us really, as we were chatting before, perhaps not our strengths, but sort of a great opportunity and a world-class place to have a round of golf, right?
Yeah, golly. I mean, and such a big thank you to BDO for wanting to create this kind of neat experience for everybody to go out and golf at the Torrey Pines golf course, because that's one that all of us have seen on TV, right? It's one of the big PGA courses and the like. But just in general, that La Jolla, Torrey Pines area of San Diego is just such a beautiful spot. And it's one of the other elements of the investment into this program, Jason, that we wanted to do. She said, hey, this isn't a trade show, right, kind of environment. This is more of a conference kind of summit, right? To bring folks together that are trying to figure out those opportunities, the impact, the outcomes kind of thing. So let's create it in a really pretty area that can give folks an opportunity to have some of those neat conversations with each other, maybe while we're overlooking the Pacific Ocean, as opposed to being locked in a big expo hall kind of area or what have you. So we're really excited to do that. And to your point, it's just such a pretty part of the country here in the States. And I think it's kind of neat to have a destination sort of place to go to, right, Jason?
For sure.
As opposed to just, a city. So excited about that too.
Well, John, it's always fun catching up with you. I think this is really a great conception and, formulation of this event. I'm really looking forward to being there. MSDW is going to have some more coverage as we work up toward the event and being there on site and learning from the people there as well. So thanks for your time. And I look forward to keeping it going.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for your incredible support and partnership as our official partner here from a media perspective, not only for AI Agent and Copilot, but also for the BizApps Partner Summit and for Community Summit North America. You, Adam, and the gang at MSDW really set the tone out there for all of us to pay attention to. So thank you for that, sir. Thank you to the gang over at Microsoft for their amazing support of this program, to our partners that we just chatted about there a few minutes ago, and to all of the amazing attendees that are going to be a part of this program with us. Cannot wait to see you there March 17th to 19th at the Hilton Torrey Pines there in San Diego.
This has been another episode of the MSDW podcast. My thanks once again to John Siefert for joining me for the conversation. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a discount link for attending the event. Check out the show notes for that, and you can have a nice little savings on your registration. And that's it for this episode. If you want to get in touch with me, you can reach me by email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.